The E3 2018 ended a few weeks ago, but what have we learned from it? What topics seem to move the gaming industry for the upcoming year? As the most important gaming industry expo, even though slowly losing its standing, the E3 gives a good perspective on what seems to be the focus of the industry. I think those topics would summarize E3 2018 quite well. Battle Royale games, additional monetization in gaming after the exploitative loot box backlash, a new focus on multiplayer and co-op in gaming, and Quo Vadis Microsoft. My choice for this video falls on Battle Royale games. As you probably have heard, they became quite popular in recent days through games like PlayerUnknown's Battleground and Fortnite. The E3 PC press conference announced several new titles, but also Activision announced that their new Call of Duty Black Ops 4 will have a Battle Royale mode and solely focus on multiplayer. To counter that, EA announced a Battle Royale mode for Battlefield 5 too. But what is so special about the Battle Royale game mode? In my opinion, some or maybe even all genres stagnate a bit at some point. There are still good games coming out, but it often feels like the peak of the genre was already reached or even surpassed. The RTS genre is a good example, so let's talk a bit about RTS games first. Back in the day, around the late 90s and early 2000s, we had games like StarCraft, the Westward Command and Conquer games and Dune, Age of Empires, KKND, Homeworld, Warcraft, also turn-based strategy games like Shogun Total War and many more. RTS games were quite popular. Over the years, a lot of those series vanished, with only Blizzard and a few others keeping the classic RTS genre alive. All tries of new competitors could never reach the old golden days, with very few exceptions. So what was the problem? RTS games stagnated a bit in the development of the genre itself and only improved in some areas, for example quality of life changes, but the core mechanics were pretty much always the same, or let's say similar. In addition, with the help of the internet, we learned that, for example, some Koreans seem to be RTS overlords, showing the Western world how bad they are, at least in some games like StarCraft. That pushed players all over the world to improve in the years to come, and as a result, the competitive scenes got probably even more hardcore, which often makes the already complex RTS games even more scary for new players to enter. Which is not good for any gaming community when the initial hype slowly decreases. But at some point there was a new challenger to the RTS genre, Defense of the Ancients, or short DotA, when the first standalone DotA clones released, like Heroes of New Earth and League of Legends around 2009 and DotA 2 2013, the success was tremendous. League of Legends also pushed the free-to-play model first, which was perfect for this RTS subgenre because DotA was once a fan-made mod for Warcraft 3 and got constant free updates including balance changes, new items or even new heroes. For a constant stream of content, you need constant development resources. With 100% multiplayer focus, the game is not intended to ever be played through, so generating a constant revenue stream through selling, for example, cosmetics helps you financing the needed development and grow your game. A perfect match and success story for some companies like Riot Games. But what's so special about DotA clones? And here we are at the exact same question as before, just with a different genre. So why talking about RTS games at all? Because there are parallels, and the RTS story can help us understanding the current Battle Royale development better. The main parallel seems to be that Battle Royale as a shooter subgenre and DotA clones as an RTS subgenre have, in my opinion, at least one very smart solution for a big problem of their parent genre. In classical RTS games, which were always also multiplayer driven, we have as strengths the high game complexity, decision making and having a lot of options and decisions, which is fun, but in contrast when playing multiplayer, also the necessity of a difficult execution and tons of multitasking, which is a big problem for most new players. If you see StarCraft Pro players play with their magical 400 actions and more per minute and know how it looks when you play the same game, you cannot fully comprehend that this is even possible what you are seeing. DotA Clones now take some of the most scary elements away, or at least reduce them a lot. For example, execution is not tied to around 20 hotkeys anymore, and multitasking is reduced to just one hero unit in most cases, but it keeps the fun parts. For example, what they still inherited from classical RTS games is the strategy, options, decision making, and the complexity. In my opinion, the most fun elements. But here is also a smart twist already, because usually only 10 different hero units can be in one DotA match, which reduces the needed complexity for this one DotA match, because you only have to think about the 10 heroes that will occur in this match, not the 100 plus other heroes total available in the game. In classical strategy games, this effect is far weaker, because their units are part of factions. If two different factions play against each other, for example in a StarCraft 2 match, over 30 different units can theoretically appear in this match. My hypothesis is now that the finding a solution for problems of a genre part is very similar to what Battle Royale games do with the shooter genre, with a few differences. As RTS games, shooters also have variety in the same genre. There are arena shooters, tactical shooters, story shooters, semi-tactical shooters, and so on. However, we also have seen stagnation in those types. Call of Duty is probably a good example. Critics slam it every new iteration, but it still sells millions of copies every time. Call of Duty is for sure not the game that drives the innovation in the genre, and that is also not necessary, because they are relatively good at what they do. Some iterations are better than others, but overall people know what they get, and usually their games have a lot of different content. But this position also leads to some stagnation in the genre. The arena shooter is probably the most relatable to RTS games. Arena shooters usually have very complex and fast-paced movement that requires a lot of practice and good execution. On top of that, you have aiming with a lot of very different weapons, plus map-dependent timing and strategy components, so it's hard to get into if you are new. What is DotA for RTS games is probably the Halo series to some degree, and in recent days games like Overwatch for the arena shooter genre. In case of Overwatch, again, a smart solution for a problem which is basically making movement execution far easier, lowering the requirements for the aim for the average player through abilities and changes to the weapon types, plus tying them to specific heroes which can be mained, but keeping the strategy aspect and the importance of level design. In addition, you have team play, which is also very popular, because almost every game is more fun with your friends. So where does Battle Royale fit in? I would say if we ignore the roots in Minecraft, I would argue the, let's call it, tactical shooter with large maps genre for the most part. Fortnite is in this case a bit special and different, but that is also a newer development of the Battle Royale subgenre, and if I now think about it, the building aspect has something of Minecraft, which also had their Hunger Games or survival games mods quite early. However, you could not build in most of them. Having a large and open map seems quite common in all Battle Royale games, but big maps always come with some design challenges. Pacing and action is a huge problem. The pacing on very big maps in multiplayer games is just very random, but a lot of times you end up having long phases seeing nobody. A lot of people would agree that having a lot of players and a large realistic map seems quite intriguing, because you are so free in your movement and strategical approach to the map. A game series that found a good solution for this is Battlefield. The classic Battlefield game mode is Conquest. Only few details changed over the iterations, but basically you have different flags on a large map that can be moved. At the beginning they are often neutral and can be captured by a team if one or more players are close to the flag and it's uncontested. Both teams start with a certain amount of points. If a team holds less flags total than the other team, that team loses more points on a player's death or even over time. Who is down to 0 points first loses the game. What this design does is creating hotspots on the map. If you see a flag being contested, you know there are enemies. There's action, so if you want action, you go there and defend. Even if you are sneaky and conquer an unguarded flag, the probability is very high that someone will come and defend, resulting in player interaction and potentially fun. It is very likely that you will meet enemy players at flags, sometimes more and sometimes less. To help traveling faster over the big maps, you have all kinds of vehicles available, and the vehicles also force certain player interactions like mines, explosives, rocket launchers, or even other vehicles and so on. Of course, the pacing of a modern Battlefield game can also be slower at times, but it's always foreseeable that this will change very soon. In my opinion, a very smart game design solution to approach big maps in a multiplayer game. The problem with this is that building a game like Battlefield is not easy and also quite expensive. Surpassing this is difficult for a newcomer. Also, Battlefield sometimes feels a bit less tactical because of the hotspot game design, where masses of players clash at certain points, resulting in a seemingly never-ending cycle of life and death, which is annoying for some people. Also, the actions of players can feel meaningless at times. But a different approach was found, and here we are finally at Battle Royale games. Some of these genres games are quite tactical, so more like Counter-Strike, just on a very big map. Games like Arma exist, which is tied to the Battle Royale subgenre through its modding community. The game design solution for large maps of the Battle Royale mode is now quite interesting. A giant circle with a death zone outside of it that slowly decreases its size until only a tiny circle is left with only a few players in it. At all times players are fighting until the last man is standing, but it usually ends in a tense duel between only a few players in a very small area, being eventually forced to move when the circle gets smaller again until only one squad is left. What is important to note is that the center of the next circle into the existing circle slowly moves, also changes randomly, which makes every map and match quite unique. Of course, it also adds some randomness. It does not seem like a very elegant solution, but I think it is. It's very simple but highly efficient in streamlining the frequency of player interaction. So the game can start slow, but the also important looting, equipment and weapons component creates additional hotspots at places with the best loot. Also, the subgenre's common airdrop mechanic provides new high-risk, high-reward hotspots. Jumping out of a plane at start gives players options and the ability to influence the pace of their game. For example, a long jump looting somewhere alone versus a jump right into the action. But choices between both extremes are possible too, which also helps new players because they can choose an approach that fits their style. Being one of 100 players makes it seem less intimidating than playing duels in a game like Quake. What can help new players too is that a lot of those games support the third-person perspective, which gives players a far better overview and the ability to look around corners. So the movement of the circles constantly increases the pacing while giving players options to influence it to their liking until a certain point where the options get fewer. In my opinion, it's a fun solution and very different from Battlefield's approach. It can be more tactical and choices and actions seem to really matter because you only have one life. Of course, you can have bad luck with your position at some point, but often you have enough options and know what you could have done better. Compare that to Battlefield, where you can just suddenly get hit by a bomb out of nowhere. Call of Duty with their killstreak reward system can have a somewhat comparable effect. So to summarize, Battle Royale games avoided pacing problems with this approach, often kept the shooting a bit more basic for the tactical genre but still tactical enough, avoided the necessity of learning tons of maps in detail with movement or grenade throw angles, kept the freedom of giant maps, generating a lot of player choices but also made the choices matter more, created additional hotspots on the map to give further options like supply drops, kept the fun elements like strategy and tactics, weapon choice and upgrades, added team play with friends through squads, implemented some small skill equalizers like third-person view, some equipment RNG, a high player number with a giant map, and implemented some vehicles for faster movement at the cost of being spotted. It's quite impressive how many problems Battle Royale games solve in their current iterations. In addition, you can still learn maps and a lot of little tricks to improve further, but you can also start having fun without it, because of the size of the map and the amount of very different skilled players around it. You probably won't win every match, but you have a chance and you will still have fun and tense moments, because only having one life makes every encounter meaningful. And that is why Battle Royale games got so popular. Of course, when something is popular, we have seen it with the DotA clones and free-to-play, others start to jump on the train, but in the end only few games will succeed. We know this pattern. In the case of Battle Royale games, PlayerUnknown's Battleground lost its lead and does not manage to improve on the game's problems, which are also often optimization and technical issues. And here a lot of game developers are smelling their chance, and that is why we will see quite a few Battle Royale games in the future. Should new competitors enter the market fast enough, doing the same just better, then this can be bad news for the established games, especially when two AAA developers give it a try and one of them has already proven that they can technically handle large amounts of players on one server far better. However, I think Fortnite is safe because it was available quite early, is different enough and a good product. In the end, competition can lead to some innovations and better games. Only when people start to get sick of it and are leaving the genre behind, it's bad news. But I don't think we are at this point just yet, and E3 2018 and the months before hinted that a lot of competitors are willing to give Battle Royale a try themselves. We will see where this development will lead, but the outcome is already foreseeable now. We know it from the DotA clone subgenre. Thank you for watching. This month has been rough when it comes to views and channel growth, but it's summer and football or soccer World Cup, so I expected it. My last lore video also got buried by E3, so if you haven't seen it yet, there is a new lore video concerning Hobbits from like 3 weeks ago. As always, if you liked this video or want to discuss it, feel free to like it or write into the comment section. I read every comment and try to answer all. When it comes to what is coming next, I think about covering one of the other mentioned topics, most likely Microsoft's current direction, but I want to make a new Lord of the Rings lore video too. I'll either continue my Lord of the Rings Films Lore Explained series, talking a bit more about hobbits and the Shire, or work on the video about Círdan, probably the latter first, but I haven't decided yet. I also want to make a new Need for Feedback episode soon. In addition, I thought about a small gaming related series, but no clue if it would be worth it. I probably produce an episode as an experimental pilot at some point. It would also be a quite irregular format, so be surprised should it ever pop up. Another often requested video is also on my mind. My thoughts on Amazon's planned Lord of the Rings related series, with some speculation and what we know so far, which will definitely come at some point. But enough talking. Again, thank you for watching and goodbye.